negotiations, which is a chapter 3.3. Now, this is one of the best chapters on the planet. It's so simple, but because it's so simple and such a straightforward chapter, you only can have maybe one question, sometimes two if you're lucky on the exams. Okay, so you need to understand what is a successful negotiation, what is the effect of negotiations. So the points are pretty straightforward. So if you want to have a successful negotiation, you want to make sure it's not just you who's satisfied. For the exam purposes, you have to think how they want you to think, okay? It's not about you, it's not just about your client, it's a win-win. That's what they're looking for at the end, right? So for UBC purposes, for the exams, that's what they want, a win-win situation stuff. So the both parties have to be satisfied. So it's not just your client and you, but also the other side of the transaction. They also have to be satisfied, they have to be happy. The efficiency. So when they're referring to the effective negotiations, it's not they want you to understand that you should not be wasting your time. Not anybody's time, not just your time, but you have to be efficient. Time efficient, energy efficient, money efficient. So it's all about the efficiency at the end of the day. So find a creative way. So sometimes it's not always about money. Right? So if the transaction doesn't close because of $2,000-3,000, find a creative way to close it. Say, hey, you can keep the couch, you can keep this TV if you wanted to. Just finish the transaction. Right? That's what they're referring to. Preservation of the relationship. So don't be cats and dogs. Make sure that who are you dealing with? You're probably going to see them again in this business, and it's so true. It sounds like there's a lot of real estate agents down there, but we all know each other, right? So it's a small business, so keep that relationship, right? Minimum wasting resources, don't waste time, don't waste energy, try to be as efficient as possible. Focus on the aspiration target. So when you're working with a client, we'll talk about this, but you always have to motivate them and say, hey, what is your goal? What are we aiming for? So you have to focus on that instead of focusing on something that is negative, okay? Framing the discussion around the objective standards, so keep it where it's supposed to be. Preparation, so every single negotiation has to have the preparation stuff in it, so you have to be ready for things. You can't just go with the flow and says, I'm awesome and I don't need the preparation. For the exam, everybody needs to be prepared. Make necessary concessions. So concession is something that little breaks here and there. Apparently they are good and you should be taking them, because if somebody pushes those buttons of yours and you feel like exploding, right, and punching somebody, so maybe you should be taking a little break, a concession. Packaging multiple issues. So that's something we'll talk about. Okay, so all of that considered to be as a positive thing. So right now you're kind of looking for those four, the first one as the foundation of the whole negotiation stuff, right? So both parties have to be satisfied, the preservation of the relationship, find a creative ways to close if you have to. Okay, so what are the negative things? Opposite from what we just went through, right? So stay away from the distributive results. So winner or loser, it's not a good thing. So we have to think as everybody has to be happy, right? Determine the issue by issue. So going issue by issue, it's actually a negative thing. Why is it a negative thing? Because the whole idea of positive is the efficiency. They want you to be efficient at everything. But if you go issue by issue and says, let's talk about this first, and then let's talk about the other issue, and let's bring up the other thing, it takes a lot of your and your client's time. So that's why it's negative, because it takes a lot of time. Lack of strategy. On the exam, they call it a zero-sum game. When you see the word zero-sum game, think of it as a negative thing. That means you have no game plan. I'm just going to show up and see what happens. Not a good thing. Okay, focus on what each party wants. It sounds silly. Why would you not focus on that? But it's not just each party what they want. We focus on what clients need. Right? Needs and wants is two different things. If he needs 3-bedroom, but he wants the ocean view, sometimes he will have to go towards the needs, what the needs are. Right? So we'll talk about that in a minute. Trial and error method, also a negative thing. Let's try it this way. If it doesn't work that way, we'll try the other way. If that doesn't work, we'll try another way. Why is it negative? Because it takes a lot of your time, or your client's time. Okay, so question 1 on page 3, which of the following does not facilitate best negotiation principles? So which one is not the good option to choose? So framing the discussions around the objective standard, so stick to your objective standard, that's a good thing. Focusing on stating and defending the position of each party. We'll think about this one because it sounds pretty good, but let's see. Asking the other party exactly what they want when they want it. Okay, so far it's those two things that my people question. Last one, being creative with the generation of the ideas in compliance with Canada's Competition Act regarding the false misleading advertising. So that sounds really good. So my question is, what would you go towards to? Which one is not a good way to do things? Is that option 2? Is that option 3? What do you choose? So 2. So defending the, so apparently asking the other party exactly what they want and why they want it, it's better, because the point is you can't just focus on your client by itself. It's your job to ask everybody in the transaction. Do you see what happens? So if I'm working, I'll ask this, let's say if I'm working with the buyers, I have to ask the seller. So tell me what the seller wants, basically, right? So I'm not going to focus just on my client wants, but I also want to make sure that the seller also has priority, so we can consider that, right? But option 2, focusing on stating and defending the position of each party, apparently not what you should be focusing on. Okay, question 2, which of the following statements is false regarding the successful negotiation? Which one of the false statements? Option 1, all negotiation skills are essential for handling all aspects of the client's real estate transaction. Skills are essential. You have to have skills, right? Learning negotiation skills can be used in one's personal and professional life. That's true. You should use those negotiation skills at your home, right? Reading about negotiation skills is not sufficient to master the skills. Of course, you have to practice too. So just by reading it's not enough. And practice through the trial and the error method. So when you see the word trial and the error, that's one of those negative things. Zero-sum game, trial and the error, issue by issue, right? That's all negative. Okay, so what are the priorities? So for the exams, we need to understand, so when you're dealing with the clients, you need to know what are priorities, what do we focus on, right? Needs, wants, priorities. So basically they say this: It is essential to get every issue exactly how you would like it. Oh my gosh, that would be a dream for everybody, but it doesn't happen exactly like it is. Good luck. Too strong, too much. Option 2, effective negotiation resolve around convincing, pressuring, and arguing. That sounds too Russian. Don't choose that. Okay, option 3, you might enter into negotiation with the true understanding that you will have to give up something in order for you to get something. Okay, and this is what they want. They want you to know, so when it comes to priorities, sometimes we'll have to give up on things. Yes, you want an ocean view, but if you need is 3 bedrooms and that's your price point, we might have to forget about the ocean view. And it's not up to you to decide, but we have to educate our clients and help them to come up with a decision. So for the example, they refer to priorities, they refer to sometimes people might have to give up on things in order for them to get something that they need. Right? That's what they want. Okay, focus on the interest, not on the positions. So there's a difference in our profession. What is the interest and what is the position when it comes to negotiation stuff? So what do I mean by this? Position is it's just a statement. So I want this. Okay, if I come to you and I said, I want this, and you said, but why? I said, I don't know, I just want it. That becomes a position. Why? Because I don't give you enough reasons to explain you why I want it, or why do I need to have it in my life. But an interest, it's not just it's not a position, but it's a position with explanation, basically, right? So an interest, if I say that, if I come to you and you, my real estate agent, I said, you know what, I need to move my family by August. And if I just say it by itself, that is a position. But if you ask me why do you want to move by August? And I say, oh, because I want to make sure that we settle in before school year. Now that becomes an interest. How do you know if it's an interest? Because it has a reason behind this. It has a why. Okay? So that's what they're looking for. So I'll give you a question. Question 4. And they say which one is not an interest, but a position. So that means a statement without explanation. And you look through those options and tell me which one sounds more like a position. So there's no explanation why, they just want it. And that's it. If somebody has a fear, then you have to consider that, because that's an interest. Fear of having 2 loans. That's an explanation why you have a fear. That's an interest. Option 2, I just need to close it by January 12th. Why? I don't know. I just want it. That becomes a position, right? Some people ask, but how about the last one, the desire to ensure that the wife receives more than, it's still, there's an explanation behind it. There's something going on, right? So there's some type of interest towards it, right? So if there's a statement without explanation for sure, that becomes a position. This one is a fun one. It comes up on most of people's exams. It's kind of fun. We love this one. It's called the anchoring effect. These questions in the exam come up, they come in cycles. So for 6 months, my people, everybody has the anchoring effect. For the next 6 months, somebody else sees another portion of this chapter, right? So it kind of goes in flows. But right now, we had so many people coming back and they're all saying, oh, an anchoring effect. Oh, yeah, it was there. So what is an anchoring effect? We refer to negotiation stuff. And for example, if I list my house for $1 million, I list the house for $1 million, that becomes an anchor. So what it means, that's what I want to put in my pocket. And if you give me an offer that is way off of my anchor, so if something like you come up with the offer with $400,000 when I list for $1 million, that's way too far. So basically they say it's a psychological phenomenon. So my people know it by the just keyword psychological phenomenon. It sounds fancy. Where the first number quoted, so if I put it for $1 million, in negotiation causes the rest of the negotiation to be based on that number. So if I put $1 million, that means all of the offers will come close to this $1 million. It's not going to go too far. It's an anchor. You know what I mean? That's what that is. Okay. Question 5. Should be avoided at all times. I don't think so. A useful tool for encouraging movement away from the stated price, and it should be close to my stated price, or it's a psychological phenomenon where the negotiation makes insufficient adjustment away from the starting number. So as long as it's from the starting number, that's okay. Right? So option 3 is what they're aiming for. So how you're going to remember, it's up to you, but make sure you actually read the full thing. Make sure it makes sense. Okay. So there's a duty tactics that you have to know for the exams. Very common question. They like to ask you for what is duty for the negotiation, right? So basically, they say what you should do, what you should not do. So this is a positive thing. This is something you should be doing when somebody's using those tactics on you. So what could be duty? We'll have one question that you can look through. But if you come to negotiate, the negotiation takes forever, right? And they make you wait for hours before it starts. And they starve you. And they give you no water on the table. And they heat up the room to a temperature that you cannot even stand. All of that considered to be as a dirty tactic. So something that is unethical to do. You know what I mean? So that's what it is. So what you should do in those type of situations, you should recognize it, that they're actually using those tactics on you, right? And raise the issue and says, hey, you better stop using that stuff. Or you turn off the temperature, put the water on my table, and I'll come in on time. So all the things that you can do, you can question and argue against this. On exam, they love this option. Okay, so question and argue. It sounds really strict, but it's actually really good. They're telling you this is one of the things that you have to do. So if I give you the full list of things and I say, which one would you choose the most? The one they're aiming for the exam is this. Right? So argue against it, I mean, stick up for yourself. You know, it says, you know what, I want my water, right? And turn off the heat. So this is what you can do. Name out loud, remain non-emotional, which makes sense, right? Do not personally attack the other party. So that's something that you can never do. We'll talk about this in a minute. So what you can never do, what you should not do, respond in kind, because you're supposed to argue against things, right? Put up with it. You should not do this because, yeah, that's not the best, right? Ignore their tactics. So, I mean, you can, but you should not, right? But make insult regarding the person's nature. So one of the things that they want you not to do is the same as this one. Do not personally attack people. So that's something that's not possible. When you do negotiation, it's between you and it's between the other party, right? You're negotiating on behalf of your client. So don't take things personal and don't go personal on them. So you don't say, you asshole, you know, like that's too personal. Or what is it? Are you in your first year of your real estate? You know, that's personal attack. Don't do that, right? Even though they do this in real life all the time, but for the exams, you're not allowed to do such a thing. Okay, so question 6, negotiations should be focusing on set a resistance point, Right? So what do we focus on? We talked about this before. So resistance point basically says, okay, we only can look up to $1 million, don't even look higher, right? Resistance point. Establish an aspiration target, something that you should be aiming for. So your goals, your aspirations, and focus on what each party wants. Ooh, there's so many good options in here. So which one you should use, which one you should not. What you should never use is resistance points. For example, even though in real life, I mean, it's not bad to know your limits, but they say that's not what you focus on, okay? What you focus on, you're supposed to focus on the aspiration target, right? So it's not the ones, it's the needs that you should be focusing on, but the aspiration target is what they want you to focus on with your clients, right? Focus on the goals, because whatever you focus on, that's what you get in life. I believe in that. Okay, so this is the long question, and it talks about the dirty tactics in here. We have Eric and Lauren about to begin the second day of the negotiation on a very lucrative deal, which is important to both parties. The first days of negotiation took place at rented meeting room, paid by both of them. And the number of minor concessions were made by both sides, which is good. However, the major issues still need to be resolved. So the next morning, Eric phones Lauren to advise that the location of the negotiations has been changed and will now take place at the boardroom at his penthouse office. And the air conditioner has been turned off. Remember the story? The air is humid and hot. Lauren arrives at the time, but Eric's still not there. Makes him wait for almost an hour. Then just when Lauren is about to leave, Eric shows up, accommodated by his lawyer to intimidate, right? So that's all the dirty tactics to continue with negotiations. Which of the following responses would not be appropriate for Lauren to make? So Lauren is the one who stayed, waited in a hot, steamy room, right? And now Eric came with his lawyer to negotiate. So what he not allowed to do, okay? So even if you're not happy, even if you're pissed at the other guy, what you should not do, look at the options, okay? Give you a lot of stuff, but there's one option you should never choose, which is what? You should never go, when he says Lauren could clearly say that this change of venue by Eric was obviously just a dirty trick to shift the advantage of Eric's home court and that Lauren will not stand for it. Now this one, it's too personal. And because it's too personal, that becomes something that is inappropriate for him to do. So basically, don't go personal on people. You just have to know this question. It comes up on exam usually with the same story, with just different names. Okay. This is a new exam question. We've never had this one before. Just read it and it kind of makes sense itself. It says negotiation tactics where one party agrees to the solution, but later on states that someone else, such as boss or partner, will not agree to the deal, and he cancels on that. So he uses somebody else to cancel the transaction. What do you think that is? Okay, I haven't taught you, but it is false authority. So when somebody's doing such a thing, that's called the false authority. So that's it. So that's for my real estate people. That's enough for you guys. For my mortgage people, let's continue. And for my strata and property management, let's continue.